Okay, so I think all right, so this will be a little bit of review on the front end, and then we'll get into some new stuff. Okay, so marginal cost. I think I foreshadowed some of our marginal cost business. So diminishing returns, somebody want to give me a definition of that? You can read that one up there, but I'd like you to put it in your own words. Diminishing returns. Talk to me in terms of hamburgers and workers, like we did last time. I got my grill top. I'm in the restaurant business. My product is hamburgers. I add workers. What was the law of diminishing marginal product in that context?
But it only goes so far where it's not productive.
Okay, what's not productive? So now I want to really kind of hone in on the specifics here. So I'm making hamburgers. I started you off with 100. So one person, me, I was able to crank out 100 hamburgers. What does the law of diminishing marginal product tell me with that production process?
There's only parabola.
Kinda, yeah.
There's only a certain amount of employees or people you can bring in, do one task before the cost will outweigh the profit.
Okay, good. So yeah, you're starting to articulate that a little better. So as I add each additional person, what happens to the number of hamburgers being produced by each additional person? Does it go up or down?
It'll increase to a certain extent.
Might increase at first, and then what does it do? Starts going down. The law, and that's what makes it the law of diminishing marginal product, is that as I add more and more of a variable resource to at least one fixed resource, the amount of additional product from each additional variable input eventually falls. Now that's a mouthful. That's kind of like a full-blown definition, and it's important to start off with that here because later on in this chapter we're going to look at economies of scale, and those are slightly different. So one of the key things with the definition is that I had a fixed grill space. So by adding workers but keeping other resources fixed, or at least one of those resources, the grill, then eventually we started bumping into each other, the 7th worker, the 8th worker, and our productivity in terms of the number of units of output per unit of input, our productivity starts to fall. Because it falls, that's this next part here, diminishing marginal productivity led to increasing marginal cost. Because each additional worker I might still be paying $10 an hour, but the productivity of the 7th worker isn't as high as the productivity of the 4th worker. Which makes each additional hamburger more costly. All right, so that kind of tees us up for some discussion in this one. Here's some real-world comments on diminishing returns. So monitoring, motivating a large workforce, so probably that Tom Edwards class that you're talking about, what is that, human resources or organizational behavior? Is that the name of the class?
Leadership.
Okay, so some sort of leadership. So there are techniques that we can use as managers to try to keep productivity higher. You know, playing little fun games, making little cohorts of teams, and all the little soft skills with human resources. Those are important to combat, to some degree, or as best we can, the diminishing returns. Maybe we can make it not so diminishing. It's the law of diminishing returns, so you can't make it go away, I would argue. It's going to be there at some degree, but we can possibly change the shape of that parabola, as you were saying, Jason. That's this one. This graph looks like this. If I look at the quantity of labor and the quantity of hamburgers, each additional person, 1, 2, 3, 4, my hamburger production goes up, but the amount being added by each additional worker is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, maybe we can have some techniques of organizational behavior and management and leadership and blah, blah, blah that would actually make this look like this, right? We could change the curvature of this somehow. So the marginal product curve could maybe change due to good management or due to good leadership. However, from the economist standpoint, you can't make it do this. And anybody who tells you they can, I'd say you're not trying hard enough or you haven't collected enough data, that parabola starts to look like this all the time. Maybe it can for a short period of time, but eventually maybe it goes up and then it comes down and it gets back to the law of diminishing marginal product.
What if you're a monopolist?
Okay, what if you are a monopoly? What do you mean?
Well, I was just saying that is there a way that you could consistently increase outputs and without productivity declining, assuming that you can keep a consistent amount of buyers and
So the answer is no, because you're confusing a couple things there, though. So the thing you're confusing is this is a physical relationship that hasn't taken into account the demand side, the selling of it, as you went there at the last part of your comment. So on the physical side, we have a production process. It's kind of engineering almost, if you will. So the fact that there's one seller in the market, the monopolist, or whether there's competition and there's lots of sellers, each individual seller faces this law because it's an engineering problem. As I change the input mix, since I got you guys warmed up here to the generalized functional form, as I look at production of quantity now, this is quantity produced. I got my seller cap on. I'm not looking at the demand side. The stuff we did before was demand side. Now I'm the producer. The quantity being produced is a function of labor and capital in the most general terms. And of course, we get into a specific example, and this is the number of computers, this is the square feet of the office space, the number of chairs, the number of tables, and so there's boom, 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 boom. There's a whole bunch of K's there of different types of capital. And then we've got managers, we've got frontline employees, we've got the people watching the desk, answering the phone calls. So there's a whole bunch of L's, right? So there's a whole bunch of different types of labor. So in our production process, if we were being a little more fancy, maybe we got L1, L2, L3, L4, and we've got K1, K2, K3, K4, K5, I don't know.
So you're saying that output has nothing to do with sales or demand, it's just production?
Absolutely, right. And so as I start to add more people, but I keep the square foot of the office space the same, maybe I give them another computer, eventually that kicks in. It's kind of an engineering concept in terms of the physical production process that goes on. And again, I don't even have price in here. I'm ignoring that. This is pure engineering blueprints, right? I don't have the price of the labor in here or the price of the computer. Pure engineering. And then we take that production function and drop it into the profit equation. Now we're talking turkey. That's what makes it not engineering, but economics. When we drop it into the profit equation, we go away from being engineering into economics. So we're going to take the engineers. We're not smart enough to maybe figure out what all those engineers can do with 100 different ways to make our product. Well, you could go this way, but you're going to have to buy this $2 million machine to do that, or you could just hire